Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to explore a quiet but powerful Tet moment while Jack and Tu Tien clean the house to clean out the worry. One small note in their expense book suddenly raises a question. Why is there an advance payment written here? If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. Jack wakes before the sun has fully decided to show up. The house is still quiet, the kind of quiet that feels soft instead of lonely. He sits up slowly, listening for a moment. No footsteps, no voices, just the faint hum of morning air moving through the yard. He slips on a jacket, steps outside, and opens the gate. The handmade Tet lights are still there, hanging where they've been since the last busy day. They're simple, a little uneven, tied with careful knots. Jack looks at them and lets out a slow breath, like his chest has been holding something for weeks and only now remembers how to loosen. He walks across the yard and checks the small ornament near the door. Nothing fancy, just a bit of red, a bit of warm color against the pale winter morning. Inside, Tu Tien is already up. She's sweeping the yard-facing porch with steady strokes, not rushing, not dragging her feet either. There's a rhythm to it: sweep, gather, sweep again. She looks like she's cleaning, but also like she's pulling old heaviness out of the corners. Jack leans on the doorframe for a second, watching her. "You didn't wake me," he says softly. Tu Tien smiles without stopping. "You've been tired." Jack steps closer. "I'm not tired today." She glances up at him, like she's checking if he means it. "If you're not tired, then you can help." He nods immediately. "Tell me what to do." Tu Tien points toward the altar area inside. "We start there. End of year, we make it clean first." Jack follows her in. The altar is not large, but it's treated with care. Tu Tien folds the cloth slowly and replaces it with a clean one, smoothing the edges with both hands. She wipes the surface gently, the way someone touches something precious. Jack finds a clean rag and starts wiping the shelves nearby. He doesn't rush. He moves as if the speed of his hands can't be faster than the feeling in his chest. For a while, neither of them talks much, not because they have nothing to say, but because the quiet feels like part of the work. Then Tu Tien speaks, almost like she's thinking out loud. "When I was younger, the last days before Tet always looked like this," she says. "Not perfect, not rich, just busy. Everyone cleaning, everyone trying." Jack glances at her. "Trying for what?" Tu Tien wipes the corner of the altar cloth and pauses, trying to start again. Even if nothing changed, people still wanted to feel like something could. Jack's hands slow. "Was it happy?" Tu Tien gives a small laugh. "It was tired, but it was happy too, because the house was full. Even if the food was simple, if the floor was clean and the family was together, it felt like a real Tet." Jack doesn't answer right away. He just nods like he's placing her words somewhere safe. After the altar area is finished, they move to the yard. Jack takes the hose and rinses the ground, pushing dust and old leaves toward the drain. The water darkens the concrete, and the smell of wet earth rises up, fresh and honest. Tu Tien wipes the windows from the inside. She reaches up carefully, her movements controlled. Jack notices she's pacing herself without making it obvious. "You're okay?" he asks. Tu Tien doesn't look at him. "I'm okay." Jack doesn't push. He just stays near enough to help if she sways, and he keeps the hose low so the splash doesn't reach her. When the yard is done, they attack the curtains. Jack unhooks them and shakes them outside. Dust falls in a thin cloud that catches the sunlight. Tu Tien laughs, stepping back. "Careful," she says. "You're making a storm." Jack coughs and grins. "It's the Tet storm. It comes once a year." They wash the curtains, hang them back up, and suddenly the room looks brighter. Not because the paint changed or the furniture got new, but because cleanliness makes space feel like it can breathe. Next is the kitchen corner. Tu Tien opens the cabinet where she keeps jars, pickled vegetables, dried herbs, dried shrimp, small bags of spices tied tight. She checks each lid, wipes the glass, and lines them up like a little display. Jack grabs a marker and a roll of tape. "What are you doing?" Tu Tien asks. "Labeling," Jack says, like it's the most serious job in the world. He sticks a piece of tape on a jar and writes carefully, "Pickled mustard greens." Tu Tien watches him, amused. "I know what that is." Jack points the marker at her. "Not for you, for me." She laughs again, and it's the kind of laugh that looks like it's been waiting behind her ribs for a long time. Jack keeps going. Dried mushrooms, dried bamboo shoots, chili salt. Tu Tien opens a small storage area, mostly a corner with boxes and old tools, and starts sorting. Things that can be kept, things that can be thrown away, things that should be moved outside. Jack joins her, kneeling on the floor, pulling out a dusty box. He holds up an old plastic bag tied with a knot. "What is this?" Tu Tien squints. "That's old string, for wrapping." "For wrapping what?" "For wrapping anything," she says. "When you don't have money, you keep everything, because maybe next time you need it." Jack looks at the bag in his hand. He doesn't laugh at it. He nods again like he understands. He sets it aside carefully, instead of throwing it away. By late morning, both of them are sweating lightly. Their hair is messy, their sleeves are rolled up, and the house looks like it has been lifted out of a heavy coat. Tu Tien goes to the sink and washes her hands slowly, then turns to Jack. "I'll make lunch," she says. Jack raises a brow. "Let me do something." "You can peel eggs," Tu Tien replies. Jack gives a dramatic sigh, like he's been given the hardest job on earth. Then he starts boiling water. Lunch is simple. A warm soup with vegetables, a few eggs, a small braise that smells like home, salty and sweet at the same time. They sit at the table with no rush. Jack eats like he's been starving for normal life. Tu Tien takes smaller bites, but her eyes look calmer than they've looked in days. For a few minutes, they talk about nothing important, how the soup turned out, how the yard looks brighter, how the curtains smell clean. Then Tu Tien stares at the tablecloth and says quietly, "This is what I missed. Not big things." Jack looks at her. "What did you miss?" "Simple days," she says. "Days where we clean, cook, and it feels safe." Jack's throat tightens, but he keeps his voice steady. "We can have more of these." Tu Tien smiles, "But there's something tender in it, as long as we keep choosing them." After lunch, Jack stands and starts clearing dishes. He wipes the table with slow circles. Then his eyes drift to the expense notebook lying near the corner, something he uses to track household costs, repairs, small purchases. He picks it up, flips through a few pages, mostly out of habit, and then he stops. His finger rests on a line written in a different pen. "Advance payment." Jack reads it again, slower this time. "Advance payment." His expression changes, not panic, not anger, just a quiet shift. Tu Tien notices immediately. "What is it?" Jack doesn't answer right away. He turns the notebook slightly toward her, tapping the line with his finger. His voice is calm, but the question lands like a small stone in still water. "Why is this written here?" Tu Tien leans in, squinting at the notebook like the ink might change if she looks hard enough. Jack keeps his finger on the line, gentle but firm, the way he holds a place in a conversation when he doesn't want it to slip away. "Advance payment," he repeats, quieter this time. "I'm not blaming you, I want to understand." Tu Tien exhales through her nose. For a second, her face looks tired, like she's been carrying the answer in her pocket all morning. "It's not what you think," she says. "It's small." Jack nods. "Okay, then tell me." Tu Tien reaches over and turns the notebook toward herself. Her fingertip traces the line beneath the words, a second note in her handwriting. "I paid a deposit for the banana leaves and some beans," she explains. "The seller said near Tet everything disappears fast. If I didn't reserve it, we might not find good ones later." Jack's shoulders loosen a little, but he doesn't fully relax yet. Not because he doubts her, because something in him has learned to be careful. "How much?" he asks. Tu Tien answers immediately, like she's been preparing to say it clearly. "Not much, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to hide it." Jack looks at her face, searching for anything dishonest, and finds none, only a quiet determination to do things properly, especially after everything they've survived. He sets the notebook down slowly. "I'm glad you wrote it," he says. "That's not the problem." Tu Tien tilts her head. "Then what is the problem?" Jack hesitates. He doesn't want to turn a calm day into a heavy one, but he also knows that the small worries are the ones that grow if nobody names them. He taps the table gently. "The problem is, lately, whenever I see money moving without me knowing, my mind starts running." Tu Tien's expression softens. She nods once, understanding without needing a long explanation. "Because of before," she says quietly. Jack doesn't say yes, but he doesn't need to. His silence is an answer. Tu Tien reaches across the table and places her hand over his. "We promised no more hiding," she says. "So if I pay a deposit, I tell you. If you feel worried, you tell me." Jack squeezes her fingers. "Deal." She smiles, and the tension fades like a shadow moving off a wall. Jack stands and stretches his back. "All right, no more detective work on notebooks." Tu Tien lifts her brows. "You're the one who opened it." "I opened it because I'm a responsible husband," Jack says with a straight face. "Also because I'm nosy." Tu Tien laughs, the sound light and honest. "You are." They go back to cleaning, and now the house feels even calmer, like that small ripple has been smoothed out before it could become a wave. Tu Tien moves to the bedroom and starts sorting clothes. She folds the towels neatly, stacks them, then pulls out a bag of old shirts and sets it aside. Jack follows her with a broom and dustpan, sweeping under the bed, finding the usual forgotten things. A small toy, a missing sock, a pen cap. He holds up the toy with 2 fingers. Evidence. Tu Tien looks over. "That's Anna's. Put it in her basket." Jack walks it to the basket and drops it in like he's filing an important document. They clean room by room, not in a rushed way, but in a steady way, like building a quiet rhythm for the season. Tu Tien wipes the mirror and pauses when she catches her own reflection. Her hair is tied back, her cheeks a little pale from the cold, but her eyes look clearer today. Jack notices her pause. "You okay?" he asks again, softer. Tu Tien nods. "I'm okay, just grateful." Jack steps closer, careful not to crowd her. "For what?" "For normal things," she says. "For being able to clean a house. For having a house. For having you." Jack looks away for a second, like he's embarrassed by the tenderness. Then he clears his throat. "Then I'm grateful too," he says. "For the soup, for the curtains, for your jars being lined up like a little store." Tu Tien's lips curve. "My jars are beautiful." "They are," Jack agrees, completely serious. And it makes her laugh again. By mid-afternoon, the cleaning is mostly done. The floor is clear. The shelves look organized. The kitchen corner is neat. The yard gate creaks less because Jack has tightened one loose screw. They stand together in the doorway, looking at what they've finished. Tu Tien wipes her forehead with the back of her hand. "It feels lighter." Jack nods. It does. He glances up at the handmade Tet lights outside. "Tonight we turn them on?" Tu Tien's eyes brighten. "Yes." They take a short break, just tea and a small snack, and then they move back into small Tet preparations that aren't really chores, more like rituals. Tu Tien checks the dried goods again, pressing the lids, counting what they have, making a quiet list on a scrap of paper. Jack pulls out a roll of red paper and strings, choosing a few simple places in the yard to tie them. He's not trying to make it perfect. He's trying to make it theirs. As the sun dips lower, the air gets colder. Jack brings 2 small stools outside to the porch. Tu Tien sits with her hands around a warm cup. Jack sits beside her, shoulders finally dropping like he's letting the day hold him instead of the other way around. They watch the yard for a moment. A neighbor's dog barks in the distance. Somewhere far, someone is chopping wood. The village sounds are familiar, steady, alive. Tu Tien speaks first. "When I was a kid," she says, "I thought Tet was only about new clothes and food." Jack hums. "And now? Now I think Tet is cleaning your heart," Tu Tien answers. "Cleaning your house is the easy part. The hard part is cleaning the worry." Jack looks at her, quiet. "How do we do that?" Tu Tien leans her head slightly, thinking, maybe we don't clean it all at once. Maybe we just don't let it pile up in the corners. Jack nods slowly. "So we talk." Tu Tien smiles. "We talk." Jack reaches out and adjusts the sleeve of her jacket, tucking it closer around her wrist, like he's still trying to keep her warm in every way he can. "Tomorrow," Jack says, "we'll double-check that deposit together. Not because I don't trust you, because I want us to be a team with money too." Tu Tien agrees immediately. "Yes, we'll do it together." They sit a little longer, and then Jack stands. "Ready?" he asks, pointing at the lights. Tu Tien stands beside him. "Ready." Jack takes out his phone and taps the control. The handmade lights blink on softly, warm, uneven, a little homemade, but beautiful. Tu Tien inhales like the sight is medicine. Jack watches her face more than the lights. For a moment, the world is exactly what they needed. A clean house, a quiet yard, and a calm breath shared between two people who have learned how fragile peace can be and how precious. Then Tu Tien nudges him gently with her shoulder. "Look," she says, "it's not perfect, but it's ours." Jack nods. That's the best kind. They go back inside, wash up, and make a simple dinner. Nothing complicated, just warm food and a sense of being settled. After they eat, Tu Tien takes the expense notebook again and places it on the table between them, along with a small folded receipt. "Here," she says, "I kept it." Jack opens it carefully and reads it. The amount matches what she said. The seller's name is written clearly. The phone number is there too. Jack lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Thank you," he says. Tu Tien's voice stays gentle. "Thank you for asking," calmly. Jack closes the notebook and taps it once, like sealing a promise. "We keep doing this," he says. "No hiding, no guessing." Tu Tien nods. "No guessing." Jack stands and stretches again, then looks at her with a small, tired smile. "You know," he says, "this might be the first time cleaning felt like healing." Tu Tien's eyes soften, because it is. They turn off the main lights and leave only the soft glow from the yard filtering in. The house feels clean, the air feels calm, and just before they head to bed, Jack glances at the notebook one more time, habit, not fear. His eyes catch a tiny mark on the receipt he hadn't noticed earlier. A stamp, faint, smudged. It's not a name, not a warning, not something big, just a small detail that makes him pause and think, "Tomorrow, I'll call and confirm, just to be safe." He doesn't say anything yet. He simply folds the receipt neatly, places it back inside the notebook, and turns toward Tu Tien, choosing peace for tonight and choosing carefulness for tomorrow. As Tet approaches, Jack wakes early and notices the handmade Tet lights hanging in the yard. Inside, Tu Tien begins the end-of-year routine, sweeping the courtyard, wiping the altar area, changing the tablecloth, and opening windows for fresh air. Together they do a full house clean, rinsing the yard, washing curtains, reorganizing the kitchen corner, and sorting a small storage space. Tu Tien checks jars of pickled vegetables and dried goods, while Jack tightens shelves and labels containers so everything feels orderly. Over a simple lunch of warm soup, eggs, and a gentle braise, Tu Tien shares memories of past Tets when money was scarce, but the home felt happy if it was clean and everyone stayed close. As evening settles again at the end, Jack notices an advance payment entry in their expense notebook and quietly asks why it's there.